Hey guys, so the Montreal Canadiens finally won a game. They've stopped their 7-game winless streak, and maybe even more importantly, they've scored some goals. They put up 5 against Florida last night. They won the game 5-1. They finally saw some offense from this team, which has had virtually no offense all season. But just because they won last night and they looked pretty good and they put up some goals does not mean that they're out of the woods yet. They still only have 2 wins on the season, and they beat a Florida team that quite frankly isn't very good. Florida is certainly not one of the better teams in the East. They look like one of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the East, and Montreal probably should beat a team like Florida. Now, obviously, with the start that Montreal's had, Florida was probably the favorites going into that game, but you knew that Montreal was going to win eventually. They're not going to go, 2-80 for the season, so they were going to win at some point. They finally did it. They need to build off this and win their next few games, or you could see them go right back, lose a game 2-1, 3-1, something like that, and then back on another losing streak. So they're certainly not out of the woods yet. There certainly hasn't resurrected their season or anything. They've still only got 2 wins, but it gives them something to build off of, and it gives them some hope. They finally have some hope, and they've shown that they can score. Even though it was just 1 game, I'd like to see them string a couple games together where they score 3+ goals for a few games in a row, not just have this one-off 5-goal game and then go back to scoring 1 or 2 every night. They need to string something positive together here to even have a chance of turning their season around. They need to get back to 500 really, really quick. If they're not back to 500 in, say, another 2 or 3 weeks, then you're to the point where, even though it's still pretty early in the season, time is becoming an issue, because points are really hard to make up in this league. With the 3-point games and the extra overtime points, it's hard to come back from the bottom of the standings and climb your way, passing teams over and over, a bunch of teams, to get up into a playoff spot. Because even if you're winning, other teams are getting losses, but they're getting a point because it was in overtime. It's really hard to catch up. That's why starts are so important in the NHL, because once you dig yourself a hole, it's really hard to climb out of. Now, it's still way too early to say that Montreal can't climb out of it. But I mean, if we get to like Thanksgiving and they're still, sitting in, near the bottom of the East, it might be time to make some big time changes, and this season's probably a lost cause at that point. There's not many teams that come from being way out at Thanksgiving all the way back to become a playoff team. And then by Christmas, Thanksgiving for me is like the first checkpoint in the season. Christmas is the big time cutoff. If you get to Christmas and teams that aren't in the playoffs by Christmas usually don't make the playoffs. Occasionally you get a really strong second half and the team comes up and snags a wild card spot or something, but normally by Christmas, New Year's, around there, the teams that are in the playoffs at that time end up being the teams that make it. So Montreal still has a lot of work to do, but it was really, I guess it was good, especially if you're a Canadiens fan, to see them finally score some goals. It gives you hope. It gives the team hope. Because, I mean, I can't imagine how demoralized that being in that locker room must have been when the losses just kept piling up and piling up. But now that that's finally over, I think they should get a new jolt of energy, a new spark. They should be like, "What? All right, we can do this. The season's not over. We got this. We need to just go out, play hard, win some games, and then let things take care of themselves." So it was really good for them to get that win last night. They need to build off it. They've got to win some more games. One win doesn't change much. They need to string something together here. Going on a nice, 3, 4, 5 game win streak would do wonders for that team. So that's about it on Montreal. Just finally scored some goals and finally won a game. So like, comment, share, subscribe. Spread the word. We want this channel to grow. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.